My name is David Muller. I'm Dean for Medical Education. I'm going to speak just for a couple of minutes, kind of introductory remarks, then Michelle Sante will get up, and then Shashi will do probably the bulk of the presentation and go through the agenda. So just a couple of quick and obvious things. I want to thank everyone for coming here today. I want to thank everyone for the significant amount of effort that it's going to take to get the school through our LCME reaccreditation process. It's a very high stakes process for us. It's also very important for a lot of obvious reasons. Accreditation for the school is meaningful on a national scale, and also if we use it in the right way is meaningful internally for us in terms of the quality of what we do. On a more sort of reflective level, I've had this for even a couple of years now, I would say, sense of I wasn't sure exactly what it feels mostly like foreboding. And those of us in this sort of small group of medical education have been working on the LCME process for about that amount of time, almost 2 years now, maybe even a little bit more. And I really wasn't sure what it was about. I mean, the LCME process is challenging, and it requires an enormous amount of work and organizational skills and effort on everyone's part. It didn't feel to me like that was the it. And I've still been struggling with what the it is. And I think it's dawned on me in the last day or two that it's not really a sense of foreboding. I feel like we are at a moment of truth or an inflection point in the history of this school, where if we look at what we were like the last time the LCME came, and we did incredibly well then from an accreditation process, but we have now gotten ourselves to a place where we have, I would argue, one of the best teams in medical education, and that includes the teams of kinds of people who are sitting in this room: doctors, staff, educators, students, arguably one of the best in the country. And yet we have to get ourselves to a place where we can support all of what we know we do as well as we do, to the extent that it needs to be supported. So not all the resources that we would like to have access to are in place. Not all the quality controls, not all the data analysis that we need to be doing do we do as well as the top, let's say, 5 medical schools in the country. And this is an opportunity to make that happen. Yes, we have to check off a lot of boxes for the accreditation process. But yes, also if we do it in the right way and it allows us to advocate on an institutional level for the kinds of things that we need to do in order to legitimately call ourselves, if not the best, and one of the best medical schools in the country, this is the time and the place to do it. And so it means for us that it's even more high stakes than just an accreditation process, which is already kind of daunting enough. It means that we have to look really critically at who we are, what we do. And I would argue that we do medical education, we do justice, we do healthcare better than anybody around. The question is, how are we going to support that moving into the future? And the answer is going to come from the people in this room, because the process you're going to be engaged in is a very, very critical dissection of every single thing that we do, and pointing out our weaknesses, our flaws, what the challenges are moving forward, and helping us figure out how to advocate for what we need in order to close those gaps and do this even better. It has to do with our admissions and recruitment, it has to do with curriculum, it has to do with student affairs, it has to do with all of the sort of functional components of a medical school, but it also has to do with the things that we believe in deeply, like justice, like equity, like racism and bias initiative, like all of those things, wellness, that are near and dear to our hearts. So with that, I'm going to pass on to Michelle. I really want to thank you again for taking part in this and investing yourselves in the process, and we hope to make it as successful as it can possibly be. Thank you.
So thanks again. The purpose of the meeting today is to kick off the process of self-study. Shashi will walk you through the structure and function of the accreditation process, your role, how we have designed the infrastructure that will help you do your jobs better. We will also have a training. We have set up to use a collaborative space called Google Teams, and we have some members of the academic information technology team here to do a training so that you will have at least some beginner literacy on how to engage in that space, because all of the documents and communications will be shared through that tool. It's a great collaborative tool. Also, For those of you who have done this with me before, you know that I like to at least throw in some things to keep you engaged. We'll have some incentives for participation. We'll have some good old-fashioned competition against subcommittees. We will reward those who succeed in meeting milestones and achieving a very high rate of attendance for their committees. Each committee is led by 2 co-chairs and a key staff person, and they will be your conduit for information, will help you achieve the milestones that we will set out on the timeline, and also help you win prizes. So I look forward to the participation of everyone in the room as we move forward. Each committee will operate a little bit autonomously. We're going to give you a chance to break out a little later. After we finish Shashi's overview and the AIT training, so that you and your team can kind of bond and coalesce for a little bit, have the opportunity to get a team prize, and also figure out your way of engagement for the next 15 months. It's going to be a long haul. The lion's share of the work will be from now through about February, but this is really, we're in the home stretch, which is about a 15-month process before the LCME is knocking at the door for the on-site visit, which will happen in October of next year, and you'll hear more about that. Those dates will be drilled into your head, do not worry. So I encourage you also to really engage in this work. Be thoughtful and committed. It's going to be a body of work that's in addition to your day job, and all of us are being met with productivity metrics. All of us are being met with deadlines and a growing role, and seems to be an never-ending capacity for work. So we do appreciate so much that you'll take the time, but I do ask that you put in the effort to the work, because it does require the entire Mount Sinai Icahn School of Medicine community to really engage in this process, for it to not only be beneficial to us, to check the box of accreditation and requirement, but also to be beneficial for us, because oftentimes we discover things about ourselves, that we think things that we're doing that are terrific, and we need to replicate those things, or B, that there are areas that we really have some room to grow, and we need to understand what it's going to take for us to get there. So sit tight. Enjoy the ride a little bit. Feel free to reach out. You will be receiving correspondence from LCME at mssm.edu. It is not spam. It is us reaching out to you. We're going to try to keep it to that email address so that any number of us can respond to your inquiries, and any one of us can respond to the activities and information that we will be sharing. So please feel free to reach out if there are any questions, either after today or at any other time during the process. Thanks. Oh, also want to say Maggie Kane and Pete Zweig are also part of the LCME Ops team. Maggie, Pete, raise your hand. They're at the table. So they're outside at the table. It's a community effort to put this together, and Pete and Maggie did a lion's share of work to get us here. Be sure to thank them when you go outside.
Welcome, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shashi Anand. I'm the Assistant Dean of Curricular and Student Affairs, and I have been working closely with Michelle, Maggie, and Pete, and also Omri, our intern for the summer, to get this kickoff meeting started. As Michelle and David have said, there has been a ton of work done by people in this room already to get us to this point. So I just want to thank you all. You know who you are. You have been working diligently on gathering a lot of information for us. All of you should have received a folder, and your folder is specifically for your committee, your subcommittee that you're on. So it will include a list of who your subcommittee members, team members are, who the chairs are, who the key staff are, the timeline, and other information that I will refer to as we walk through this presentation. So as David and Michelle have said, we are going to go over what LCME is. For those of you who are chairs, I will not go into the same depth that we went through in our introduction meeting. I'll briefly describe the process and the structure. I'll talk a little bit about your role in the process so that you have an understanding of what's expected of you. And we'll also review the timelines and resources. I want to say to Michelle and David, please feel free to fill in for anything I might forget. And let's get started. So what is the LCME? It is our accreditation body for medical schools within the United States and Canada. It is recognized by the Department of Education and the World Federation for Medical Education as the authority. And it is sponsored by the Association of American Medical Colleges and the American Medical Association. What is the purpose accreditation process? For those of you who went through the 2011 process, a lot of this will look familiar. You're basically checking boxes, making sure that we're meeting certain standards. But what's different for this time around is this idea of continuous quality improvement. And this is really critical because this is ongoing as we review the outcomes of our program, as we look at every piece of data that comes across the table. We within medical education are engaged in that continuous quality improvement process, but you will also be looking at the information that we provide you with that same lens, because it's a really reflective process about what we're doing well, what we need to improve, and the LCME is very focused on that. And it provides us with an opportunity to really identify what additional resources we might need, what gaps we have, what we're doing really well and we can pat ourselves on the back with, but also really identifying where we can really stretch and do better and maybe provide resources to enable us to be very successful. It also enables us to be agents of change, which is a big thing here at our school. But if there's something that we really feel like that we need to advance and push forward, this is a great process by which we can identify those areas. And I mentioned the culture of quality, how we can really identify ways that we can improve various areas. The LCME has identified 12 different standards, and your committees are structured around these standards, and you'll hear more about that in the breakout session. These standards are focused on, do we have a very clear mission and learning objectives for our medical students? I do want to highlight that the LCME is very interested in what is the student experience, what are they gaining from this process? The student is the focal point of this process, so that is another thing that you need to keep in mind. Is the program's curriculum and resources organized to meet those that mission and objectives? And what is the evidence that the program is currently achieving its mission and objectives and is likely to continue to meet them in the future? And that goes back to that continuous quality improvement process. So there's a whole host of accreditation components that the LCME is going to look at and that you as subcommittee members are going to be looking at. The ultimate end result, I'm going to kind of work backwards a little bit, is what we call the self-study summary report. That's the box at the end. And that's really the culmination of what we will give to the LCME in August of 2019. Our process before that has been within the medical education team is to fill out what's called the data collection instrument, or the DCI. And that is done before the self-study period, in theory. It's a work in progress. And it is a data gathering tool. And it includes a comprehensive appendix with a lot of information related to the program. This tool also includes data from what's called the graduation questionnaire, which is otherwise known as the GQ. This is the questionnaire that is done on a yearly basis. Fourth-year medical students take it, and it is generated by the AAMC, and it shows trends of school data against national data. So a lot of that data will be in the DCI. Many of the DCI standards and elements reference the GQ data, so that will also be in there. Another piece that you will see and have access to is the independent student analysis. Generally, most schools only do this right before their self-study. We happen to be very fortunate that at this medical school, our students actually do an independent student analysis every year. For the trustees in the room, you've seen some of that data on a yearly basis. This is purely student-generated, and it includes recommendations, and that will also be included. That is also something that you're going to closely look at as you develop the fourth box, which is the self-study subcommittee reports. So this is gathering all this data together, analyzing it through a very critical lens with an eye on continuous quality improvement. And your subcommittee generates this report based on several questions that the LCME is looking to you to answer. And you should have a list of those questions in your folder as well. It's a narrative report, so you're going to answer there's approximately 4 to 10 questions per standard. Some committees are going to have multiple standards to review. Some committees only have 1 or 2 standards, and you'll hear more about that in your breakout session, and it also denotes that in your folder. And essentially, that subcommittee report is a synthesis of the DCI, the data collection instrument, and the ISA, the independent student analysis. You will have access to all these slides. You do not have to memorize this at all. Also, your subcommittees and your key staff members are going to help you walk through this process. So I've been talking about the DCI a lot. I mentioned the 12 standards. This is an example of a standard, Standard 7, curricular management. The way the LCME structures it is they have a high-level kind of mission statement around this standard. The faculty of a medical school ensure that the medical curriculum provides content of sufficient breadth and depth to prepare medical students for entry into any residency program and for the subsequent contemporary practice of medicine. That is not a simple question. They also break it down into what we call elements. So you're going to hear this a lot. You're going to hear the overarching 12 standards, of which your committee will have a couple standards to review. Each standard has a number of elements that are asking us, the medical program, to answer. So that might be data from the GQ. It might be a narrative response about how we do certain processes and procedures. It might reference a certain policy. The data collection points can come in a variety of ways. This is a sample of what the DCI looks like in reference to the curricular management standard, and you will see the course information where you'll see 7.7 is an element. And these are all the data points below, including the GQ data, the narrative on our methodology, the documented of assessment methods. All of this will be provided to you. So you will receive completed elements that you will then review as part of your process in answering those questions. Any questions so far? Okay. So what does the process look like? I've mentioned a little bit of it. I want to go over the structure a little bit. I've mentioned the self-study subcommittees. You are members of one of 5 subcommittees, and we also have the students, of course, are like a very critical aspect of every subcommittee, but they're also the student body that provides us feedback through the ISA and participates in the self-study. The student council is very critical in that as well. So we each have these 5, there are the 5 subcommittees. They report up into the self-study task force, which is basically a steering committee. They're the ones who take all the reports at the end of the process, review them, and write the summary report of the strengths and areas of development. We also have on each committee a key staff member, and you will get to know your key staff members very well. And I'm just going to read off the committee members and the key staff, or the committee chairs and the key staff really quickly, because I just want to thank you for your service in advance, because it's a big job. So for the institutional settings subcommittee, we have Phyllis Schneff and Angel Palermo, key staff member Peter Zweig. For the faculty subcommittee, we have the co-chairs of Leslie Schneier and Kurt Campbell, with our key staff member of Maggie Kane. Educational Resources Subcommittee, Joy Kaleli and Paul Lawrence, with Brendan Bullen as the key staff member. And then the Educational Program for the MD degree, co-chairs Rena Karani and Rainier Soriano, with B. Jorlowski. And finally, the Medical Student Life Cycle Committee with Peter Gliotto and Valerie Parkas, with Olga being the key staff member. So thank you all for being such key members of the committees. You're very crucial to the success of our process. Of course, the medical education has a big support structure behind this to ensure that you as subcommittees and steering committee get everything that you need. You've heard about Maggie, Pete, myself, and Michelle. We comprise the LCME operations team, I would say, and our job is to really the logistics behind the whole LCME process, ensuring that we're thinking strategically, engaging you in the process, and we are here to answer your questions about anything that you may have. And then there's the Medical Education Planning Action Committee, which is comprised of the LCME Ops members, but also the rest of the Department of Medical Education leadership team. And our job is to really look at the program through the lens of the continuous quality improvement process, really think about the strategy, what's our goal over the next few years, how do we want that to come across in our LCME process. And all the members of the leadership team have been intimately involved in pulling together the DCI process over the last 2 years. Also, the LCME has 2 roles that are prescribed by them. That one is the Faculty Accreditation Lead, or the FAL. Dr. Muller is that person, and usually it's the faculty, a senior faculty member within the department, manages the self-study process, engages with various departments and divisions across the school, and is the primary point of contact with the LCME. Then we have the survey visit coordinator. That is Michelle Sante, very experienced staff member, as she has gone through self-studies several times, and really manages the logistics of the survey visits, including hotel reservations. Who knew? They really are quite granular with the process. So there are 2 key roles that the LCME identifies with. So all this to say, you know the process, you know the structure. Hopefully you're getting a sense of what, it goes into the LCME process. Well, let's talk about your role. So obviously, attending meetings is one of the hardest things that we at Sinai, it's one of the bigger challenges because we have so many other commitments. But it is really critical to try and be there at the bulk of the meetings because we need your input. We need a broad view looking at the medical education program, and the LCME is looking making sure that we have a diverse voices looking at the program. And you're really going to provide a neutral analysis that leads to conclusions about the programmatic strengths and challenges. So we're not looking for you to hide any of our areas of development because they're really opportunities for us to improve our quality of our program and to really provide the students with what they need here. And it really gives us an opportunity to then identify things that we might want to strategize about, put resources behind, and really just make this the best possible program. And for instance, making recommendations for actions to resolve any identified problems. And then many of you will be asked to participate in the site visit because the LCME really wants to hear from you and your views on the program. So the self-study timeline and resources. You each have this timeline in your folder. We are here at the kickoff. And as I mentioned, the DCI is a pretty critical part of the process because that's how you're going to answer the questions. Right now, the DCI for most committees is due to the LCME Ops team on July 2nd. It'll be available to self-study teams on July 16th. Ish. For some committees, subcommittees, because there are so many elements and standards, that'll be on a rolling basis. And the key about the DCI is that it's an iterative process. So you might be reading one of the elements and say, this doesn't make sense to me. How can we clarify this? And you'll be able to give us feedback on that. And the other aspect of it is the GQ does not come out until August, so we cannot provide you with the data for that yet. So then we'll make sure to communicate with you when you have access to that data, as well as the independent student assessment, because they do not provide us with, we will not get that until October. But we will keep you up to date on when data is available, when different aspects or different parts of the DCI are updated so that you can continue to answer questions and analyze the data. The self-study subcommittee reports are due back to the task force, that steering committee, by February. We then go through a process of finalizing the self-study summary report for submission to the LCME, and that all goes to the LCME in August, and our site visit is in October. You will be updated on these dates continually and notified of any changes to the DCI and the data as we go through the process. As Michelle said, there are self-study incentives. These were very successful last time. So there'll be lots of milestones that we'll try to meet. Participation is really key, as I mentioned before. So we definitely want to engage you in that process. And so we'll let you know how you can be the best subcommittee or the winning subcommittee throughout the process for those of you that are competitive. Any questions? I know I just gave you a lot of information. It's a lot to process. We are all walking around during the breakout sessions and can answer questions. So as you think of things, definitely let us know. So Michelle had mentioned that we have a great resource for you. We wanted to find a way in which you could access the data really easily and make sure that everyone's looking at the same draft, et cetera. So Academic IT has put together a great resource for us called the Google Teams, and they're going to give us a brief overview of this for those of you who haven't experienced Google Teams before.
Okay, thanks to Paul and Larry for sharing their team's resources and allowing us to invite Igor and John to come up, John Silvestri and Igor Bodnar.
Partner, yeah.
To come up and share a little bit. Google Teams is a new environment to the institution, so you guys are getting like insider info.
Hey guys, Igor Bodnar here, John Silvestri here. We're part of Academic IT. One of our responsibilities is Google Admin. So some of you guys are already familiar or have your personal Google accounts. So the interface should be familiar with you. So we're gonna go over quickly about Google Team Drive, which is an excellent collaboration tool. If you are familiar with Dropbox or Box that we use here, this tool is basically for personal use that you share out of your own, let's say, space on the web. But Team Drive is actually a space where it's made for the team to collaborate, to basically share the information, share the files, edit them, and me and John, we're gonna show you briefly how does that work.
So just FYI, everyone, you will not have to use your Gmail account. We have set up a Google Drive account for you using your MSSM.
But it's gonna be on the screen.
Email address. For those of you who are primary hospital
Oh, sure.
employees and had a Mount Sinai.org email, we have set you up with a school network account, so you will be able to access the Drive environment. If you cannot access the Drive environment at any time in the process, feel free to reach out to the LCME at mssm.edu email, and we'll try to troubleshoot with you, and if we can't, we'll refer you over to AIT.
Thank you.
Yep. So, first step, of course, is you'll need to log in. As Michelle said, you should have access provided to you by her group. So if you have a MSSM campus account, an MSSM email, then it will be just your standard email and password. If not, those are the details from Michelle's group. So you go to, as I had typed in, g.mssm.edu for basically Google. You'll be presented with this screen.
An easy password.
John is secure.
Yep. And then that will take you in to Google. And Igor already has this open, but I just wanted to show you the login process.
Right, so when you get here, there's a menu bar here, and you select Drive. once we create a team drive for you, your team drive will be here. It's going to say team drive. And for your team, there'll be a designated drive, which is LCME. And depends on which group you're part of. You'll have the right permissions. And you only be able to see that particular drive. Or if you have multiple permissions, you will see more than just one. So let's say we're gonna start with a file that I already have, which is an Excel file. In order for you guys to add a file, it's very simple. File upload, select the file, or drag and drop, and it's gonna be here. So now you notice that it's an Excel format. So when you double click, it's gonna prompt you to this. Okay? You cannot edit the file like that, so you would need to click on the Open with Google Sheets. And in here, you guys will be able to edit, hopefully soon. Yeah, so here, you guys can collaborate and edit whatever you think is necessary. And while I'm doing the work on this particular spreadsheet, John would like to collaborate on this file as well. So he's gonna open.
I'm gonna try to open it. Also, just call attention to the fact Igor showed, of course,
for
an
me.
Excel spreadsheet,
Oh.
and now we have Google Sheets. The difference is Google Sheets is a web application like Gmail, and it allows for real-time live collaboration by multiple users. Excel is just a file that you've basically uploaded from your office computer. So you may very well have a reason to work on Excel files. They're things you've already downloaded to your computer and worked on. But when you want to do this, when you want to collaborate, it does need to translate it from the Excel format to this. That's why there was that little pause.
Right, and I'll add to this, while John is logging in, he will create another file called demo XLS, even though it's this particular one is Google Sheets. You'll see it's X for Excel, and this will stand for Sheets. So this logo. So
And-
this one, you cannot collaborate. It's a straight upload from your, workstation. But this one, you guys can collaborate. And while John logging in, you're in. So you're gonna see like, this is my name, Igor, with my initial, and John just logged in, and it will show up as J. And if you have multiple people logging in, it will continue with all your initials here. So when John is editing, he's gonna be, I guess, red, pink.
And so
And-
you'll see my
right.
box that I'm working on is outlined.
Right, and he just changed that, and I can see where he is standing at the moment with outlined box. So it's gonna have his name. On the,
Because this is all modern Google stuff, these Google apps exist on your phone. So in addition to doing it on your desktop computer or laptop, you can also access these documents anywhere.
all right, so this is for Excel. Same thing goes to, goes here for a document, a Word document, or it's called Google Docs. And we can do the same collaboration on this file as well. John just logged in, and he can type or remove.
And then you can, of course, show that I made changes and everything that you do in Google Docs is tracked so that if you're collaborating and you want to see what did a previous version look like, you can click where it says changes already saved and it shows them. So this
Right.
is the very first copy of the document that I created months ago, which is blank. And there's even smaller revisions.
And we can name the versions, so
That's
if,
a nice feature that
right,
Matt called attention to. We can call this we can hit those three little dots and say first draft, and everyone can be collaborating on this file. And someone said, well, wait a second, what did that say 2 weeks ago? And rather than saving 15 copies, V1,
Or sending them email to each other, hey, this is not
Yeah.
the revision, or this is revision number 28. We can just save everything here, and it's super easy. You can go from the initial upload or initial document all the way up to this particular moment where you're still collaborating. So that's the Google Sheets.
And furthermore, if someone decides, hey, a bunch of the changes that were made are no good, you can hit this button here called Restore This Version, and the live copy will snap back to that.
Right. As I mentioned, Google Team Drive is for the teams. So no matter if you guys leave the institution or decided, to move on to another location, an admin is able to adjust your settings, and the files will still exist for the other team members. So it's not only available on your computer, it's available for everyone. So no matter where you go, the admin can always adjust your restrictions and or add more members if people join the team.
And you can, of course, Igor mentioned that there's this button here for uploading files or folders. You can also this Excel file, you can easily download to your computer by clicking on it, right-clicking and saying download, which will be placed in your downloads folder. But also, if you are using the Google format, this one, and you say that and if you hit details, it will also tell you definitively that this is a Google Sheet, this is Excel. If you've decided, I worked on all this, but I want to share this with somebody who is not in Google, you can hit this button here, File, Download as Excel, or download as PDF.
Yeah, if it's a
So-
Word document, maybe it's easier to save as PDF or Word. It all depends, how you guys want to share, if it's going to be editable or not. But you guys can share that way if you need to send someone a report. Another feature is you guys can feel free to organize the way it's convenient for you, the folders, files, and rename. It's easy as you can just click on this, rename, and name it something else.
We do ask you, though, not to rename the
The-
team name, because the AIT team is tracking it by LCME, so it's got to keep the LCME tagline so that they can manage on their end the Drive environment.
And one more thing, that if you delete it by mistake, the stuff is here in trash, and you can restore it by dragging it back to the folder, to the drive. Ask it, okay. And one more thing, if you guys need help, please contact Ask It, and their email is askit@mssm.edu.
It's the Academic Support Center for IT.
Right,
They're
and
located in the Levy Library, just behind the desk.
they'll be able to help you with login problems, and if they need an escalation, they will contact us as well.
So if you see on the left here, each of your subcommittees, if you open one of them. So here, all of the materials that you're going to get today, you'll have already digitally in your Drive space. You'll have sample meeting templates. Our key staff have been trained. We had a training session with all of your key staff last week, and so they are prepared and ready to get all of the details that they need, and a variety of different documents and materials that will be useful for your first session. So, thank you, John. Thank you, Igor.
Sure.